Now, before I go into this subject further, let me tell you there is one huge uh, elephant, or shall I say the dragon in the room. And the dragon in the room is the Chinese imports. Now, when Modi took over in 2014, our trade with China was around 65 billion, of which we exported 14 billion and we imported 51 billion, and we ran a trade deficit of 37 billion. Now, China doesn't give us something extraordinary. In fact, the Prime Minister told the Chinese that he said, we even get Ganesh Murthy from China. Only thing, the Chinese Ganesha has very small eyes. Now, that is very good to say that. But today, the authentic data point for Chinese trade comes from our embassy in Beijing. In fact, we are not hosting it in many of our Government of India websites. I tried, but then I thought, let me see if we have some data point in our embassy in Beijing. And they proudly say, our trade with China is now roughly around $128 billion. Sorry, $128 billion. And we run a trade deficit of $100 billion with China alone. 99 point something, I rounded off to 100. Now that is, no economist is telling us that what is China giving us? China is not giving us jet fighters. China is not giving us supercomputers. China is giving holy powder. China is giving us Ganesha for Vinayaka Chaturthi. Ganesha, the table probably in which I am sitting and table on which Dr. Swami is sitting is made in China. Most of the goods that we buy in Amazon and Blinkit and others are invariably, if you look at it, it's made in China. That's finding its way to our homes. And we are not even aware that many of these things can be made, but we are not able to make it because there is a huge stress in the MSME sector. And the MSME sector is virtually in some doldrums. And this is the sector that would have created the Ganesha. This would be the sector that would have created the holy powder. This would be the sector that should have created the furniture. This should have been the one that would have created some water jugs. This should have been the one which should have created some cups, saucers, all these things for us. But today we are dependent on the Chinese for most of our day-to-day living in terms of imports from China. And that, I think, no Sarkari economists want to discuss. It is the dragon in the room, and nobody wants to talk about it because it displaces employment here. It contracts consequently the purchasing power in the hands of the common Indian, and thereby shifts. You are actually exporting unemployment out of India and actually giving Chinese an employment opportunity. Now, if you have done it to some other country also, it's understandable. You are doing it to China, and that's the worrying part, and nobody is talking about it. $100 billion of trade deficit with China, I think, is simply unacceptable for an economy which is 4 trillion, which means 2.5% of your GDP is your trade deficit with China. 2.5 to 3%, simply unacceptable.